of the other things, I don't know, I know this is that the program Forever Family and Gia Tutelo Mode is near and dear to your heart. I don't know if you've seen the special that she did on the children in foster care.
I did not.
So we'll have to, for the viewers out there, you must watch it. Go to the Forever Family YouTube channel or the CSC YouTube channel, and it focuses on the children and the fact that they are children. These are not a nuisance.
Right.
These are not bad kids. They're children who are there through no fault of their own. It's bad circumstances.
That's right.
So we must find those foster and adoptive homes.
Right, and one of our colleagues has taken a lead. She's new to Congress, second term. Karen Bass has gotten deeply involved in this nationwide, and she brought several people here for us to see what I call the template model for our children in foster care.
Excellent.
Thanks to you.
Thank you. Well, it's really a broad community effort. The Community Foundation of Broward really stepped up to the plate. The Children's Services Council, we have amazing providers, and it is truly wonderful how many of our young people are going on to college. The idea was that foster care was a path to homelessness and to the judiciary.
I just recently had my second intern that was a foster care kid, and she's a wizard on the computer. And what she brought to my office was some real joie de vivre and some new, creative, innovative ways to go about dealing with the computer. Her name was Maddie, and she just left recently. But that's something that I take great pride in bringing those youngsters to Washington when we can get an opportunity for them.
And we both had the experience of interacting with the kids who come up to DC for the trip of a lifetime, which is such an incredible experience for those kids who've been through foster care to come up to our nation's capital to not only see the institution that it represents, the greatest democracy in the entire world, but to interact with members of Congress, to visit the Smithsonian museums, the Washington Monument, the Lincoln Memorial, and really show them that they are part of the greatest country in the entire world, and that the sky is the limit as far as their potential. And we've heard so many experiences from them that trip changes their lives. It truly is a trip of a lifetime.
Right. And then the
Angels and
Adoption program, where those kids come up. I just had two sisters and their adoptive parents come to that program. And it's fascinating.
It is.
And it's the kind of work that we should be doing. And regrettably, Congress talks a good game sometimes, and then we don't show up with the resources.
Congress isn't even talking a good game this time, unfortunately.
But you mentioned the trip of a lifetime, and I would be remiss if I didn't do a shout out to Evan Goldman,
Yes, Evan Goldman.
whose vision it was. And he put so much of himself into that.
Yes, he did.
So many of our children, we don't realize, those of us who are privileged, who've had the opportunity to travel and go all over, don't realize that there are some people who have never left their a few block radius.
Right in this area.
Right. And so by giving them the chance to see outside of their neighborhood, that there is a big world out there.
It's hard for people to believe that there are children in Broward County that haven't seen the ocean.
Yes.
And that's a simple fact. And it's one that...
if you don't have the transportation to cross town...
you never see the ocean.
You never see the ocean.
Right.
So we try to do that through our programs. We're trying more and more to get them to see outside, to take them outside the neighborhood. And now the Early Learning Coalition also, for the preschools, we're trying to create some field trips and some virtual field trips and ways for them to get a vision of the world.
That is so important.
It really is.
Mm-hmm.
So
that and after school programs, early intervention and after school programs would reduce some of the problems that we have in our communities without question, in my judgment. If you start early with children, and that's what you all do so effectively, then you wind up in a position where those children are more likely to be successful. We have now empirical data 32 years of empirical data on Head Start. And the reflected statistics show that children that began and start and in that program, black, white, Asian, Latino children, don't wind up in prison if they wind up in that program. An abundant, well over 90%. And that's something, when I was in Congress initially before Debbie got there, and I heard people talking about cutting Head Start, I was apoplectic. I just couldn't believe that I'm talking with people that want to cut Head Start. And it's something about the fact that children don't vote, that no matter their status in politics, leaving the vulnerable on the side seems to be easy to do.
Well, to add insult to injury, now we have a Supreme Court case that's being argued on December 8th that would actually not only ignore children because they don't vote, but wouldn't even count them for purposes of representation. The Evanwell case is being argued on December 8th, where in the state legislatures, potentially, you would only count people for purposes of representation when a district is drawn if they are eligible to vote, which would exclude children
countless
completely.
Numbers of people. 28%
of Americans are children. 55% of Hispanics in this country are children. 45% of African Americans are children. And if this case is successful, then you would not count children for state legislative races in Texas initially, but then there would be all kinds of lawsuits all over the country.
And that has additional implications. Some things that come to the county are formulaic.
That's right.
And they're based on population. If you go the way that they're talking about,
I missed that one completely.
Well, it is happening, and depending upon the decision, it would push us further toward elitism in our overall political structure.
Imagine
which is harmful.
some legislative districts. Let's say that was applicable in Florida. Some legislative districts in Florida could have a plurality of the population that are children. Now, if you can't count them in the next redistricting, and you're only counting the adults who are eligible, because remember that also removes legal permanent residents, it removes felons, it removes people who are, who've not had their rights restored but may not be serving in prison at that moment, and it of course doesn't count any undocumented immigrants, all of whom actually affect services.
That's right.
I mean, just because you are undocumented doesn't mean that you're not accessing services and utilizing the infrastructure. So transportation, for example, never mind schools, transportation is formulaic based on population in a district. So if your community has a large percentage of children and they're not counted for purposes of population when drawing a district, then that formula doesn't apply to them and that district gets less money.
Yeah. And they have no representation.
Here's another thing. If you have children who are not 18 before the decennial census, they turn 18 after the districts are drawn, then you could have them not represented and not counted for most of the decade that they are actually eligible to vote and could have been counted.
Yeah. Well, you'd have 9 years of children who will turn 18 and be voters who wouldn't be counted.
It's an outrageous case that the fact that the Supreme Court took it was a surprise, and there is a real risk, and so people need to be paying attention. It's the Evanwell versus Abbott case.
So had it been shot down in the lower courts and the state of Texas is appealing to keep it?
The Court of Appeals rejected it. And the Supreme Court, it takes 4 votes to grant certiorari, and the Supreme Court took the case. And presumably
hopefully to say that this is not constitutional, I would hope.
Well, let me change the subject again and talk about Safer 4.
Yeah, scared me.
Your Healthy Mothers and Healthy Babies undertaking, also you're to be commended. You see, we came here to praise this organization.
Well, wait, I'm supposed to be interviewing you, Congressman.
But tell us about that program. Tell us about that program.
Well, it is encompassing the things that are near and dear to you. We were looking at those programs that we were looking at what are the leading causes of death of children under the age of 4. Mm-hmm. And it is the drowning, and it's due to co-sleeping or an unsafe sleep environment. And so thanks to Mayor Mike Ryan and Kim
Sunrise.
Gorsuch from DCF, they picked up on 2 of the programs that we fund and did a strategic outreach to the different cities to have this campaign called Safer by 4. And I'm happy to say that all of Broward cities have now become signatories and have said they're going to be a Safer by 4 community, which has their police and their firefighters looking at the water safety situations and the safe sleeping. There's a dose program developed out of Fort Lauderdale with Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies. When EMS workers go into a home for any sort of call, and there's always the people who are waiting. You have those that are tending to the patient, but then they have others who can help with the stretcher, and they're just hanging around for a while. They're looking to see if there's any evidence of an infant and if there's any evidence of a crib. And if not, they can call Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies. They can have a crib delivered to that home with instruction on how to put the baby to sleep alone on their back in a crib. Not in the bed with the adult. Not
so the goal
not
is
with blankets and pillows and stuffed animals.
The goal is to have every child have a happy 4th birthday.
Absolutely.
That's right. Exactly.
And now we have just a few minutes left, and I'd like to give you each an opportunity, in about a minute and a half each, to say any last thoughts you'd like for our Broward citizens.
Sure. Just to commend the Children's Services Council and you and the people of Broward County for recognizing that children can't represent themselves and they can't protect themselves. So that's why having a regulatory environment and programming in place to be able to make sure that we can keep them safe, improve the quality of their life, and set them on a path for success is so critical. And I know how proud we both are that we represent and live in Broward County, and can make sure that through generation after generation that we're able to make sure that Broward County sends our children out into the world and prepared for any possibility.
Right.
Excellent.
I echo those sentiments, and I would urge everyone to thank this organization, to also be supportive of this organization that we're here about. And Cindy, I would appreciate it if you would provide me some of the family resource guides. One of the things, we're here in the West Broward Library, and Debbie and I have been very favorable toward libraries in our legislative efforts, and rightly so. But a lot of people think everybody has a computer. People that work with me think that all people can contact. There's still something to be said for just having the information, and there's a wealth of information for families that we need greater distribution of this guide, and I commend you for it, and thank you for having us on the program. I deeply appreciate it.
Well, I deeply appreciate both of you. Whenever there's a children's issue, I know exactly where to go. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
You're welcome.
And for what you do every day. I couldn't be prouder to have 2 representatives like
Thanks,
the 2
Cindy.
of you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
So thank you to Congressman Alcee Hastings and Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz for spending time with us to talk about issues that shape our lives, the South Floridian community every day, and the whole nation. We wish that every legislator across the country was as forward-thinking as they are. I've been your host, Cindy Arenberg Seltzer, President and CEO of the Children's Services Council of Broward County, where our mission is to empower Broward's children to become responsible, productive adults capable of realizing their full potential, their hopes, and their dreams. For copies of this program or any other episode of Future First, please call the Children's Services Council at 954-377-1000 or visit www.cscbroward.org. Like us on Facebook, and remember to join us next time on Future First. Focus on Broward's children.